And they're trying to talk inflation down by saying, we're going to keep raising rates to 4.5%, blah, blah. They'll never get there. At 4%, the U.S. government debt is $30 trillion. That would be $1.2 trillion in interest costs. The math doesn't make any sense. You got $300 trillion worth of debt around the world, which has doubled in 10 years. How are you going to implode the entire system if you raise interest rates? So I think they're going to find an excuse. And I think the excuse is being given to them. They're exporting their inflation around the world. Countries are screaming. They're looking for IMF bailouts. Something's going to break. In America alone, it now takes 50% of the average household income to pay a mortgage. Credit card debt is at its all-time highs. They're going to break. Something's going to break.
There is, at a global level, and we saw it during the pandemic, a desire for government to get bigger, for taxes never to go down. I frankly see no hope for the next decade and more from our Conservative Party of it believing in free markets, of it believing in small enterprise and business. I don't underestimate the magnitude of the task or the power that now exists within the global financial and political community, and they really have shown their influence in Britain over the last week.
Does this keep you up at night?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think we're heading to a 1984 Orwellian world. I really do. I'm not sure what one can do to stop it if everybody does it. America's going to do it. China's done it already. I don't know what world we're going to do it. Yeah, I don't like it.
Do you talk about it with your kids?
Not in detail, but certainly, I'm the chairman of an organization that is trying to prevent conflict around the world. And so I know a lot about the geopolitical conflicts, and I've studied history, and I see patterns that emerge over and over again. And I tell my children that we're going through a change and that they have to be prepared to see some difficult times ahead.
Is this a currency war? Would you define it as such?
I think it's the beginnings of a currency war, and that is I'm absolutely certain that we're heading into a global monetary system reset. And although we can't see the end game, you know that the monetary system is in play. They want to create their own exchange in Moscow, and they're trying to attract members from around the world so that they can create their own gold standard outside of a system they see as manipulated. So, and there are many, many more. So I'm watching all these pieces, and I'm going, okay, it's in play. The rest of the world is going, hey, this is pretty cool because they've been held hostage for so long by the U.S. dollar supremacy. What's it done? It has gone from beggar thy neighbor policies to beggar, almost bankrupt thy neighbor. Right? You've got the U.S. dollar right now that's going through the roof. It's up 20%. So what's that doing to the rest of the world? A lot of emerging market sovereign debt is priced in U.S. dollars. How are they going to service that debt? Everybody's going, yeah, we wouldn't mind an alternative currency to the U.S. dollar. And for the global south, those that are not in conflict with each other, like the West, Russia, China Act, for the global south, the Indias, the Brazils, the rest, they would love to have a separate alternative trading currency where they can choose to trade with both. They can trade with the U.S. dollar or trade with that, whatever that thing ends up looking like. And that, when it happens, and it will happen in some way, and I doubt it's going to be by consensus. It's going to happen. It's going to be forced upon the U.S. dollar, and then things will change, and the U.S. dollar will lose its status as the supreme dominant currency. The U.S. would like the status quo to remain. That's absolutely certain, and they will fight it. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that this is going to be a nasty fight when it comes down to it. But how are they going to stop it when the rest of the world is stacking up in gold reserves? And they've been doing it for the last 12 years. Every central bank in the world outside of the West is piling on their gold reserves. What do you think they're doing that for?
Does that concern you at all about the U.S. not being the reserve currency of the world? Does that?
Well, it concerns me only from the point of view that I think it may usher in very dangerous times.
Right.
Because it's seldom that global power shifts without conflict. You know, if you look back through history, it's very seldom that there's a power shift from a global leader in finance, commerce, military to another without some form of deadly conflict. And that's the part that worries me. So not only is the U.S. impoverishing the developing world that have to pay their debts and service their debts in very overpriced U.S. dollars, but the U.S. is also exporting its inflation. By having a much stronger currencies, it makes the imports of all these countries much more expensive. And to the point where the UN the other day begged the Fed to stop raising rates. And, you know, obviously the Fed is focused on salvaging their very poor reputation of managing monetary systems this far. So I think that the the world in general is very ready for this. And I think it's going to be hard for the U.S. to stop 80% of the world's population from doing what they need to do. If I'm right, and I think the signs are everywhere that we're heading towards a different monetary system, bifurcated or multiple currencies, then you want to own something that's going to have to be revalued. And I can walk you through the numbers, how that revaluation would work.
Frank, it sounds like you're talking about a great reset, which, you know, just a few years ago were conspiracy theories. I mean, are you talking about, is this the great reset?
I think you're seeing the beginnings of it. There's no doubt in my mind we're heading towards a reset. I just don't know what it looks like at the end of the day. I just watch all of the indicators, like the accumulation of gold. And you think about it, since 2010, all the central banks around the world have been buying gold, right? Every year, because, you know, all of the non-Western countries. Right. I think everybody is preparing, setting the stage.
Will there ever be a way to be outside of the system, or this is it?
The only thing that I can think of, and again, I don't have a crystal ball, okay, here, I'm just speculating, but the only thing I can think of is have some physical gold, okay? I think everybody, and I mean everybody, should own some physical gold. The Fed is, to me, a government-backed cartel of bankers that have no real interest in the real economy, and they're either extremely incompetent or they're complicit. It's a cozy relationship, and I don't think I think they've ruined the American dollar. I think they've ruined the American economy. They printed all this money unnecessarily. They'll never be able to live in a stagflationary world for a while, and there's nothing they can do. They're stuck. They've been in a box, and I've told you this years ago.
I can't see the way out.
There's no way out. They made the mistake a long, long time ago. The only thing that's going to change things now is a reset of the entire global system.
Right.
That's the only way out.
It makes sense.
And there will be pain that comes
sense.
with it, but there's no other answer. There's no way to unwind this problem. So I think that the Fed created the problem in the first place, and now you know they're in danger of putting everybody over the cliff because they want to talk tough. But I think they're just basically exporting their inflation and trying to talk inflation down as opposed to actually tackling it in any meaningful way with really aggressive rate hikes. So that's the Fed.